Greetings, this is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and it's been another 10 or so days. And yes, another binge watch of Star Trek Discovery. Saturday's episodes will be Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, and Sedum Parum Asylum Bellum. Is that right? Hold on a second. Si vis pacem parabella. Si vis pacem parabellum. Which essentially means if you want peace, you have to have war. Essentially, it's Latin. So this episode was Magic to Make the Sanest Person Go Mad. It was a sort of a episode similar to that TNG episode with the exploding Enterprise D, cause and effect, a favorite story parodied in the Cillian stories. Here, Harry Mudd has Q powers given to him by a time crystal stolen from Star Wars, which enables him to reset history every 30 minutes. It opens with a silly party on the ship. Burnham is having a party on the ship and at a party, and then they're called to the bridge to investigate a floating space whale that's in distress. They beam it aboard the ship, and Harry Mudd pops out of the whale in a spacesuit and starts shooting everybody in a Letamock spacesuit. Starts shooting everybody. Then we reset to another timeline where Stamets knows something about what's going on, and he introduces his interface device on his arm, and then there's some other stuff with the creature again, and the whale, and all the stuff that happens, and he informs Burnham and Tyler that there's a time loop going on, and that Mudd keeps winning. In another time loop that they have in there, Mudd admits what he's doing, and he's winning, and he's got all the codes and everything. And they can't seem to get him out of there. In another timeline, then Stamets convinces Burnham to tell him a secret so that she can remember it in the other timeline, and then affect change there. Then she and Tyler in another timeline have a dance, and then there's another timeline in which they figure out that they have to play along with him long enough to see what he's up to, and Mudd apparently has a idea to sell the ship to the Klingons, and it's a very convoluted, very silly track, or very much something that would have been done in a silly track. Of course. So they do this. It was, and they eventually trick him. It's out con man line, which I said a couple of times last year, in deference to something else. So that's in here. And so they trick him into thinking that he's called for the Klingons, and then he drops his guard. There's some other plot device about a dark matter bomb, and somebody Tyler getting melted, and then Burnham getting melted. There's another one where she takes the time crystal, and then they come up to the ending again where they figure out that all they got to do is lure Mudd to make him think that he's got the Klingon ship coming, and turns out it's not. It's Stella's ship and her dad, and they show up and stop him. And then Mudd has to go with Stella, just kind of like how Mudd got the androids in the classic Trek. But this Mudd is different than the Roger C. Carmel Mudd. It's a different actor, obviously. Those guys long dead, but this guy's, I guess, he appears to be similar age. It doesn't tie into the Mudd incident in the other timeline mentioned in Into Darkness. That would have been around the same time period. But they messed up the timeline. This is more Prime, although it's not technically Prime because Enterprise isn't. This is like after Enterprise, so it's already been altered. It's 100 years after Enterprise, a little bit over that. And well, over that technically. But yeah. So, and they're currently working on season 2 and fixing some of the mess that is season 1 here. So they are going to fix some of that. They've even fixed up the ship from the original trailer thing. Uh, and they've already sold the model. But they've changed the model. So we'll see what happens with that. Looks like, yeah, that is a screen graphic. That isn't an error. That they have changed the model. Yeah, so people know that. But yeah, they just, whatever. New production team changed things around a little bit. Maybe it's a different timeline, like in this episode. Yeah, not a bad episode. A little confusing, but not bad. Tended to have your, it was fine for hours, I guess. Idea of Harry Mudd having a time crystal device from the Bajorans, who they hadn't met yet, is a little weird. But okay. Yeah, but that ties into the other story, the comic book one, where they had Mudd in it. The IDW comic books. They probably shouldn't do that much because the fans aren't going to get it unless they read the comic book. But yeah. So a lot of goofy stuff going on here. They're trying for character development with the characters, but really, Stamets and Lorca are the breakout characters, and the main ones, Burnham, is not. It doesn't quite have. Tilly's a little too jovial and like Silly Kelly from Silly Track. And of course, because he's silly. But yeah. So, yeah. Discovery. So that was my take on this episode of the binge watch. The Mudd episode. Another Mudd episode. I guess he's a reoccurring character. Yeah. So that's now I'm gonna watch the next one. Yeah.